Andy, define the speed figures and what their goal is to accomplish.
To me, the purpose of them is very simple. It's to show who ran faster than whom in the horse's previous starts. You know, when you pick up the racing form and say one horse ran 7 furlongs and 124 at Aqueduct, and another horse ran 6 furlongs and 110 and 4/5 at Belmont, and you're trying to compare the two, it's practically impossible to do. So the idea of figures is to translate every horse's performance into a number that expresses how fast they ran. I mean, and how fast horses run, I think, is almost self-evidently the single most important factor in handicapping. But we all know there are dozens, hundreds of factors that can go into into influencing the outcome of a race. I never aspired to make speed figures anything more than speed figures. When I started handicapping seriously and using them, I just wanted the number to answer all the questions about who was faster than whom, and then I could look at the other factors and relate it to the time. But I think that I guess maybe in my early days I had envisioned the idea of maybe I could have a number that told you everything about a horse. That's not realistic. But I think that good speed figures can and do answer that one crucial question: how fast did the horse run?
Do you think, on that point, that they've been almost misconstrued in some cases? I think a lot of folks probably take them to an extreme.
Well, I want people to understand what goes into the figures, and to not view them as some magical, all-encompassing number that will predict every race and tell you everything about a horse. The figures, like most traditional speed figures, ours have only 2 components. I mean, one is a speed rating and the track variant. And these are the components of most classic speed figures. We take the time, the raw time of any race or any horse's performance, and translate it into a number that makes easy the comparison of times at different distances. And then to that speed rating, we apply a track variant, which is a number that it reflects the inherent fastness or slowness of a racetrack on a given day. And putting those two together, we come up with a speed figure. And again, all it shows is how fast the horse ran, and we adjust that for the condition of the racetrack on a given day. It sounds simple. I mean, it's taken decades to refine this to the level that I think the Beyer speed figures are now. But over the decades, we haven't added any significant bells and whistles. It's still those 2 elements.
Talk about how that transition came from you just using them on note cards and paper, I'm sure, and making your own self-notes, to developing into a commercial product. Well,
first of all, I never had any vision of doing anything commercial with them. I always viewed them first and foremost as a personal gambling tool, and a great tool that they were when they were not in the public realm. I maintained, this was the pre-computer era. I kept the figures in a in a 29-cent vinyl folder, and they were all written neatly in red pen, and a lot of the the calculations were very laborious and time consuming. And when I was doing them in the 70s and 80s, I could do maybe a very limited number of tracks, but I had friends, people who'd read my book Picking Winners, who were also doing numbers like for their own tracks. So we might compare notes. I mean, if I were dealing with like a shipper from Oaklawn Park to one of my tracks, I'd call Randy Moss, and say, what was this horse's number? And so I had a little network of speed figure guys, with whom I would, share information. But again, my whole aim was just to use these as a gambling tool, and and they were a tremendous edge when nobody else had them.
I guess that all changed with the launch of the Racing Times in the early 1990s, which was at that time, for newer fans, a competitor to Daily Racing Form, really the first new competitor that came on the market in some time.
Right. Steve Christ, was the brains behind the paper. He was a speed figure guy himself. He'd read my book. He saw the possibilities commercially of including speed figures, in the horse's past performances, to give a significant piece of information in the new paper that the Daily Racing Form didn't have. I mean, unfortunately, the Racing Times, lasted only 1 year, and I thought I was going to be going back to, the old vinyl folders with the red flare pens. But to my surprise, the Racing Form, decided that they wanted the numbers too.
This is a case where competition spurred innovation, I think.
Yes, absolutely, and I think the form. I think the people at the Forum recognized that the Racing Times was doing a lot of good, innovative things, and they didn't want to be seen as kind of a bully that was squashing a good rival product, and so they incorporated a lot of the features that Steve had put in the Racing Times, and happily the figures were one of them.
You've gone from the folders to having a whole Beyer Associates team now,
right?
And some of the names who help you put figures together throughout the country are people that fans would know. Tell us a little bit about the Beyer Associates.
Well, I have a partner, Mark Hopkins, who lives in Saratoga and Miami, and he was one of the first people who read Picking Winners, and we became friends in the 70s. And when we went commercial, we started the business together, and we have. Randy Moss is, now known to anyone who watches horse racing telecasts. Was with us from the start. Dick Girardi, a writer from Philadelphia, also has been with us, since the 70s, and we have in total, 5 employees plus Mark and me, and among us we cover all the tracks in the country. I mean, everybody has certain assigned race tracks, and Mark and I have our own. I mean, I do Maryland, I do all of California, I do Kentucky, and so on, and those are my responsibilities. Plus, Mark and I kind of oversee, the whole operation, and and just kind of the whole. Look at the operation of our database, and how can we improve that? I mean, I mean, we've come a long way since the red flare pen era.
Now you've got a central database that everything is put into. Everybody inputs their individual races. How often do you go back and look at a figure and say, you know what, we probably need to tweak this one?
Regularly, and I know a lot of people who look at the figures, always say, well, gee, how could you change the figure? Well, this is not the Ten Commandments. And anyone who has ever done speed figures knows that there are plenty of times when you do your day's figures, you make a track variant, and there are ambiguities or races that maybe you don't trust. One example, sometimes tracks will change during the course of a day. Maybe the track is fast early and slow late. But say you've got a race in the middle that you're just not sure about. It could be fast, it could be slow. And so when we encounter ambiguous situations like that, we'll take our best shot, but we'll make an internal note in our computer system that when horses run back out of that race, we're gonna see that there was a question here, and so what we do in these ambiguous situations is to monitor what horses do when they run back out of a race, and let's say if we thought the figure might have been a little high, and now horses are coming back and they're all running poorly, we'll go back and say, okay, this number was too high, we're going to lower it. We also do a lot of tweaking to the figures that I'm sure people who use the figures regularly will notice, like one day they look and like there's been every horse at Fauner Park has just gained 1 point to his figures. One of the most important things we have to do in maintaining the numbers is to make sure they're all in line with each other. That a 90 at Belmont is equal to a 90 at Santa Anita, and also a 90 at Hastings Park, and we're kind of constantly monitoring the relationships between different tracks, and if we find that one track is seems to be higher or lower than another, after looking at all the shippers from one place to another, we might say, gosh, we've got to add a point here or got to subtract a point there. I know a lot of people love to look at our figures and say, oh, gee, these Delaware horses are 10 points too high, or there was some guy with a blog said, gee, this horse ran such and such a figure at Churchill Downs. If he'd run in New York, it would have been 13 points higher. I mean, everybody has different opinions that, certain tracks may be high or low, but we've got a computer program that lets us analyze the whole population of horses shipping from one track to another. And one of the things I am most confident about in the Beyer speed figures is that they are in line with each other, from coast to coast, or at least they are supposed to be. We don't have these outlier tracks where the numbers are 10 points too high or 10 points too low, and if they're even off by a point or two, we'll see them and correct them.